Hi, so my name is Daniela. I've spent my career working closely with startup founders, and today I'm joining through Creative Takeover, where we help founders turn ideas into reality. And today I'm joined by Kwame, who is the founder of Vorim AI, which is an identity and trust layer for AI agents. And Kwame, please, if you could just introduce yourself and your mission in a few sentences, that would be amazing.
Yeah, sure. Now, thank you for the intro. So, hi guys, my name is Kwame Nyantakyi. Based in London, but we're serving customers globally. We've got a few customers on board at the moment. We launched 4 months ago. So the mission for Vorim AI is that at the moment agents are being launched into production, but there's no way to identify an agent. There's no way to give them their permissions, and there's no way to have an audit trail of what the agent did and what it's allowed to do. And essentially, we solve that problem. So that's what we do. And the mission of it is to be the identity and trust layer for everywhere agent acts, essentially. So think of it like the OAuth for AI agents. That's the mission.
Wow. Sounds amazing. I feel like this is a very interesting time in AI where there's a lot of growth and a lot of opportunities, but with those opportunities also comes a lot of risk. And so I'm guessing this is a massive opportunity where there's going to be a lot of growth in the future. What do you think is something that most companies today that are using AI agents have gotten completely wrong about security?
I think something that most companies have got wrong is I think they're thinking of security in the sense of a human, but AI agents is different from a human, right? It's able to process enormous amounts of data in milliseconds, not like a human, right? So I think is us having to rethink everything about security, right? So before pre-existing AI, everything was about I am RBAC, right? That was made for humans. So we need to think about like security from the ground up, from the first principles, and build it from the ground up for AI agents, if that makes sense. I think that's what most companies get wrong, and that's what we help companies to be able to do. So but to give some context, we're in active conversations with a USA that company doing a 1 billion in revenue and the 500 employees that want to use our product. So we help companies like this to be able to think differently about security.
Definitely. And why do you think now is the right time for this? Do you think there's anything that changed in the world recently that has made this so necessary right now?
Yeah, so the reason why I think is the right time for this is that AI agents are being launched from demo into production, right? So they're accessing customer data, executing workflow, yeah, doing work that humans once was doing. So I think when you shift from that, it's important that we know that security aspect of it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Um, was there any specific moment that made you go, wow, this is a real problem and not just a interesting issue? And what was it that actually made you chase this?
Yeah, sure. So to give some context, I've always been a builder.
Yeah.
So our first company I exited at 15 for £100,000 to a US guy, and then I started another one. It's a it was a so my first business was a e-commerce business. Then my second business was an Instagram page where I grew it from 0 to 100,000 followers, and I sold it to a USA guy. So I keep on selling businesses to USA people. So yeah, so when you be an entrepreneur like me, I've always been building, right? I've been building since 15. Yeah, so it was my previous startup, Arishin AI, where I was experimenting with digital workflows in our businesses. So in our businesses like workflows, so for example, like call center, and things like that. But what I noticed is that agents are now doing tasks, but the problem is that there's no way to sort of trust it. Okay, is this agent doing it correctly, right? So that's what I stumbled upon, and one thing led to another. I researched, and I think, okay, hold on, guys, this is a big problem. So I actually pivoted the business I was doing with Arishin AI to environment AI, and that's how the idea came about. And then I spoke to a few friends of mine to see if they're having that problem. So I actually validated it first before I built the MVP. And there were a few of my friends that using it, and yeah.
Yeah, validation is incredibly important. But within this type of sector, I do feel like urgency tends to be something that's crucial Things move so fast. Every week I'm hearing something new in AI come out, some revolutionary new thing, and then the next week there's another revolutionary thing. I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about you've always been a builder. Could you tell me a little bit about your background as a founder? Obviously, you've been doing this since, did you say you were 15?
That's right. I started my first company at 15. Yeah, that's right.
Is this something that you just always felt you wanted to do, being an entrepreneur, or was it more so a thing of you kept finding issues that you wanted solutions to?
No, I think it's a mixture of both. From young, I've always been interested. Even in school days, I was building like games. I was building a website. I remember in school, like secondary school, I built a revision website for my sixth form to help them to be able to study more efficiently. Because the issue that they were having was that there was nowhere to find resources to revise to study. So I built a simple website that essentially like centralized all like the resources. So it's just easier. So rather than using 10 or 20 websites to find resources, it's all then one website for you to sort of just access. And yeah, so yes, I've always been a builder. I'm passionate about this. I just love hustling. I love finding problems and solving it. I'm really passionate about everything I do, and I try to do it to the best of my ability. Yeah.
Wow, very impressive. Oftentimes, people who are builders from such an early age tend to gravitate towards tech. It's such an interesting area to be in, to work in. But also, I found that a lot of the founders I've talked to also talk about how it can be somewhat of a lonely journey where there's not always people clapping for you and cheering on. What is it that keeps you going in these moments?
Yeah, sure. So what keeps me going is I think it's just enjoying it. I think you just have to enjoy it. At its core, I think you just have to be passionate about it, right? Because it takes time, right? I found a lot of things, and most of the things I started didn't work out. So I think it's about enjoying the journey and pivoting and knowing when to stop as well. I think elements of keep going,
Yeah.
be passionate, love the hustle, but know when to pivot as well. Know when something's not working and something works. So to give some context, we publicly launched Vorim AI 4 months ago, and in 4 months ago we have um, interest from, as I mentioned, a USA energy consumer company doing like 1 billion revenue, like 500 employees, been featured on two news articles, one in the USA, it's called Machine Brief. We featured in another one in Japan called The World Insight, and we've already got customers on board. Yeah, so things about knowing when to pivot as well, right? Knowing, okay, if something's not working out, maybe try a new thing or experiment with a new. There's nothing wrong with pivoting, right? The most successful people are always pivoting and experimenting.
Definitely. Especially in AI, where there's so much new stuff coming out, sometimes you do need to pivot to make sure you stay ahead of the curve and you don't get left behind. Those are really, really good points. What would you say to founders who are kind of stuck? Maybe they've launched but just haven't gotten anywhere, or maybe they're thinking of launching but haven't managed to get to it yet. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, sure. So I think the suggestion for that will be to try to validate the problem first, right? Try to build the most simplest way or speak
Yeah.
to customers first to see if that's actually a pain point before you spend months building. I think in the age where A- AI has made it easy to build software, it's easy or to feel tempted to build it first before validating if it's an actual need. So I think
Yeah.
the key takeaway for founders is try to validate it first before you spend your energy and your resources building it. Because as a founder, especially when you're bootstrapping, your energy is limited, right? Like your resources are limited. It's about making sure that you validate if this is an actual problem first, and also pick something that you're passionate about because it's really hard and long. And if you don't enjoy it, I think you'd give up easily. That one obstacle, one on the hard time that you give up. So I think, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's great advice. Um, Back to Vorim. We've talked about a lot about founder journeys and struggles, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about the vision you have for Vorim and for the future. If everything works out, where would you see Vorim and your company in 5 years' time?
5 years time we want to be able to expand because at the moment the majority of our customers are just based in the USA, so we also want to get some presence in the UK as well and expand in a sense where we've got a larger team, so at least a team of like 500 people to 1,000 people. They want to expand to Europe, the States, and be able to capture significant of the market share and be known as go-to for identity and trust layer. And also we've launched the Vorim AI labs as well, where we're experimenting with trust layer, but for the physical AI. And what I mean by that is that at the moment, there are drones, like humanoids, like robotics, industrial machinery being launched into businesses like processes, being launched to do tasks that humans once were doing, like driving and making food, yeah, like warehouse jobs and so many other fields. But there's no way to verify, okay, this machine allowed to do what it's meant to do? Does it have like the permission to do what's allowed to do? And is there an audit trail of what it did? That audit trail usually sits in the company that made it. There's no way for a third party, for example, a regulator, to verify if these logs are actually genuine. And this is an actual problem. I've like researched this and validated it with a few like companies that want to get on board in this with this. I think in the future we are going to see more of that. So Vorim AI expands not to just be software for AI agents, but the trust layer for physical artificial intelligence like humanoid robotics, drones, autonomous vehicles, industrial machinery.
Very, very interesting, very ambitious. There's a few questions that pop to my mind. I'm gonna start with the first one, just to get a better understanding. What would your customer usually look like? I'm assuming these are bigger corporations. As oftentimes in tech, US tends to be ahead of the curve. So from the sounds of it, would I be correct in assuming it's also mainly US based companies?
So that's right. So at the moment, most of our customers are based in the USA, but we want to expand in the UK and the rest of Europe because there's loads of opportunities as well. But yeah, I think America is leading when it comes to AI and tech at the moment. So I think maybe that's why our customer base tends to be there. But we are really open to work with a UK and Europe business as well because I see there's a huge like, potential for Europe and UK business to get ahead in tech and play a key part in it.
Definitely. What's your thoughts on what the infrastructure looks like in the UK startup environment compared to the US?
Yeah, sure. So my experience is that I feel like the people are tend to be less willing to bet on ideas or less willing to take risks, whereas UK founders and UK businesses are more willing to take risks and bet on something new that may not be formed yet. So I think for UK and for the rest of Europe to be able to have a play a key role, we have to be willing to take risk. And we have to be willing to experiment and bet on things that may not be fully formed, but it's got potential. Right? Being able to spot things that you can see it's got potential. It may look risky, but still take a chance on it because you never know. And that's the thing about taking risks. I think the good thing for us is that some US business have taken risks on us, have given us a chance to work with us, regardless of the fact that we're very early. So I think a UK and like Europe business needs to do more of that and be able to take a chance on early startups and give them a chance because that's the only way for them to really win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely space in the UK startup community to take more risks. I feel like UK VCs and angels and companies tend to be a lot more risk averse compared to the US, which is also why it seems to be a pattern that once founders from the UK and from the EU find a little bit of success, they tend to go to the US.
That's right.
Obviously, that's a big disadvantage then to the startup community here in the UK to have all that ambition leaving the country because we're not willing to take risk. Very, very interesting insights from your side. Very good points. Obviously, you found it sounds like a lot of success already in just 4 months. You've already found clients, you already have a product, you already have a good vision for it. What would you attribute your speed and success to? How have you been able to manage this in such a short time?
Yes, I think as a startup, one of the superpowers you have against big companies is that speed. Big companies aren't able to ship as fast as you are and aren't able to move and make decisions as fast as you are because they're big. There's a lot of decisions, a lot of approval, and a lot of hierarchies. Whereas when you're a small startup, you're lean, you're agile, you're able to make decisions and ship faster. I think speed and being able to take risks. So I think businesses are more like calculated, like to take risks. Whereas a startup, you still have to be like calculated, but you can be able to take risks and see opportunities differently where big businesses aren't able to. So I think that has been key. And I think the team as well, being able to get the right team and work with really smart people who are hungry, ambitious, and willing to win as well, is another important factor.
Very interesting. Do you have any tips on how to find the right people to work with? Especially in a startup, right? Finding the right people is oftentimes crucial to finding success.
Definitely. So how I found my co-founder or my CTO at the moment was actually through a referral through one of my friends. So to give some context, in my previous company, I was a software engineer building a government application, like national infrastructure that powers millions of people in the UK. So it was actually a friend and a work colleague who referred me to my CTO. I said he's really smart. I need to meet him. He can really help me for what I'm trying to build and a vision. So I think from a friendship group is a good way. Referral, friend of a friend, word of mouth from someone that you trust and someone that you like. It's a good way. Also, I'm going to start up events and things like that. And tech events are another good way. Yeah, but I think sometimes you just have to take a chance. Maybe you can try them out for like a week or a month or 2 months, see how they work before you fully commit as a co-founder or fully commit to the team. So I think those are some of the ways.
Yeah, very good points.
And also with the internet as well, I think these days like posting content as well helps to be able to attract a co-founder or a team member. The internet is really powerful.
Yeah, definitely is. Definitely is. Finding new co founders or employees or people to work with has changed a lot in the past year. It's a very rapidly changing environment where maybe everybody needs to start trying out different avenues. Like you mentioned, posting content seems to be a great way to both attract people and attract the right opportunities. Stuff very interesting stuff.
Definitely. I think before in the era of pre AI, people used to build software quietly, but I think now we've moved from that. I think now like building public is becoming an important thing where people want to see the journey. People want to see the scrappiness, the times where nothing is working and it's just you and just thinking, okay, is this gonna work? And they want to see that authenticness. I think we've gone past the phase of looking like polished and looking like everything's working because truth be told in the start, so nothing is working. Every day is a it's like it's a battle, right? Every day you're hustling, every day you're trying to figure things out. So I think in this era of like building public, I think people want to see that rawness, that authenticness, thing that they can relate to. So I think building in public helps, and also building publics these days allow you to be able to find like co-founders, as we said, investors, and to be able to find like customers as well on LinkedIn, which has worked for me a lot as well. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Um, have you had any moments recently that made you doubt your journey or made you question whether or not this all is worth it for you?
Yeah, I think when the big players launch, so to give some context, I launched a few months ago, like public. And when the big players all launch, it was like, okay, how am I going to survive? What am I going to do? How am I going to find position? But I think I was looking in the wrong way because the big players are looking at it from a different like, point of view than I am. And I think as a startup, there's always opportunities, right? Because the big players can't cover the whole market. They mostly focus on like the enterprises and in a specific aspects of the market. So I think as a startup, there's gaps or there's weaknesses that the big players are not doing. So for example, Microsoft, Okta, there's still opportunities where they're not executing right or doing something right. So or there's a gap or weaknesses for you to solve. So I think that was that moment where it made me question. But I thought about it differently. That okay, like hold on, there's still an opportunity, right? Regardless of whatever you go through, it's always find opportunity to find okay, it's not the end of the world. You can bounce back, and I think that's what keeps me going.
Wow, it's a great way to view things, and I definitely agree. The big players can't catch everybody, and they are going to be targeting obviously much bigger
Yeah, that's right.
numbers, but there's going to be a lot of opportunities that slip through their fingers. And if you're scrappy enough and willing to take a little bit of risk, like you said, there's always still a lot of opportunity in the field. Very interesting conversation. I feel like I have personally gotten already quite a lot out of it. Let's do some rapid fire questions.
Yes.
What do you think is the most overrated startup advice?
We'll just start about advice. That's a good question. I have to think about it.
Yeah, take your
I think fundraising. I think bootstrapping TTC less than that fundraising won't. I think
time.
it depends on which business to be fair, but for some business like software these days, and I think for software business these days, I think fundraising is really overrated in the sense where you can validate a problem, get a few users first, and then go and raise investment. You're able to get better terms for one, and you can negotiate from a position of leverage as well. You're not negotiating from a position of weakness. Yeah, and I think VC advisors, I think that's another bad advice. A lot of time, VCs don't know what a good or what excellent looks like, right? Like they're not in the arena. Like you as a founder, are the one in the arena, working on this every day, grinding on it, sweating, blood, sweat, and tears. So I think you shouldn't take VC advice as they're absolutely like correct. Yes, I'm saying like take the advice, but take what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. You can ditch it because they're not in that arena. A lot of VCs doubted a lot of like successful like companies, but guess what? Like turned out they proved the VCs wrong, and they won. Don't take everything VCs or investors say as gospel because they get a lot of things wrong. A lot of times they're looking for like um a pattern of recognition, and if it doesn't fit in what they expect, then this I'm like the thing is not going to work out, which is false, right? A lot of time, if a lot of founders have proved that VC wrong time after time again. So I think it's about you believing in what you do and validating your problem with your customers and your users first, and don't take everything VC say as gospel. Yeah.
Very good advice. Um, in a world where you can launch a product as quickly as you can today, maybe raising money from VCs is not as necessary anymore.
Yeah. Ideally, at the start, it's better if you bootstrap, get a few paying customers, users, or just get users, validate that problem, and then you can go and speak to VCs. Then you're in that position with power, leverage, you're able to get better terms, yeah, etc., etc.
Very good points. Very good points. And what's your view on what AI agents are going to look like in 5 years? Obviously, there's a lot of growth, a lot of opportunity, but there's also big risk that it's going to lead to a lot of chaos. What do you think is going to look like in 5 years?
Yeah, sure. So I think in 5 years, there's a stats actually that agents are already outnumbering our humans, right? I think it's 144 agents to one humans. Yeah, in 5 years, that's probably going to even be more than that. So I think what it will look like is that humans will still be in the lead, but I think it will be like humans are operating a fleet of agents and managing them essentially, to see, okay, is this doing well? Okay, no, it's not doing what I want it to do. Instead of like stepping in like to correct it if it's not acting the way it wants it to be and being accountable for those agents. Humans are still needed. Humans are not going anywhere. I think the CEO of Microsoft, is it Satya Nadella, I don't know if I mispronounced his name, but he made the point recently about companies are now built in two ways. So the human capital. So human capital is things like your judgment skill, like your relationships and the pattern recognition and domain expertise of humans. And the second is the token like capital. So AI capabilities and the capabilities of the company that knows how to manage these agents. I think that's what it will be. So humans are still in the lead, but it'll be humans operating and managing these agents, and it'll be a fleet of agents, and you're able to step in and correct it if it's going wrong or it's not doing what you want it to do.
Yeah, I personally agree. Um, I don't think we're anywhere near AI completely taking over or AI agents even taking over. Um, there definitely is still a need for a human in the loop and somebody overseeing and managing everything. So, yeah, very good points there. Yeah, nice. A lot of interesting insights. I feel like you have a good understanding of what the industry looks like at the moment and interesting insights into the journey of a founder, especially in today's day and age. If the younger version of you was watching this episode, what would you want them to hear?
A good question. I think enjoy the journey. I think as a ambitious person, we always have like deadlines of where we want to get to and how we want things to plan out. But I think it's enjoying the journey because yeah, it's a journey at the end of the day, right? Yes, we have this big ambitious goal that we want to get to, and I think I am going to achieve it. Just a matter of time, right? I believe it. You have to manifest that. I'm a big believer that manifest, but also put in the work. I think it's also enjoying the journey. That's what I will tell my younger self, and it's okay to fail as well. Is what I told my younger self because a lot of less successful people have failed loads of times before they sort of found the lane or found something that works. And yeah, it's okay to fail, enjoy the journey, and yeah, and build network. So I think in the startup journey, I think your network is important, and I think having the right mentors and the right support group, right like network with other founders, investors, and even like a startup community where you can sort of discuss problems, ideas, and challenges that you're going through is really important. So yeah, those are some of the advice.
Yeah, I have to agree with every single point you said. Somebody I know within the startup community said something that I think is quite relevant to this, and they said having a startup is like playing the lottery. There's always a big risk of failure, but if you keep trying and trying and trying and putting in the work, chances are eventually you will succeed. And
Yeah.
it's also about being at the right place in the right time, which I think you are in the right place at the right time. It's definitely a time where we need more guardrails for AI agents. Because we're going to need to use a lot of AI agents to be as productive as possible. So I wish you all of the luck. I'm going to keep following along your journey and the journey of Vorim AI. And with the growth you've seen in the past 4 months, I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more growth to come, which is super exciting. Do you have any socials you want to share, or where people could follow your journey before we wrap this up?
Yeah, sure. So I've got my LinkedIn, Kwame Afranie Nyantakyi on LinkedIn. Yeah, I don't know if they can spell it, but maybe you can add it somewhere.
Linked.
Yeah, I've got my X as well. I tweet sometimes on X. I've got Instagram. It's Kwame Insta. I have a YouTube channel as well, which I'm speaking to. It's someone in the USA actually to sort of like share my journey of what I'm doing with Vorim AI. So that should be cool. Yeah. So those are some of like the social media I'm on.
Perfect.
So yeah, I'm sure I'll share it all with you.
Yeah. We'll have it all linked so that people watching this can also follow you along on your journey. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I wish you all the best as well with Creative Takeover. Yeah, I
Thank
love what you guys are doing. I'm rooting for you guys. Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's such an interesting space to be in, to get to work so closely with so many founders and follow along their journey, like yours.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.